Good evening. I'd like to open the meeting of the Town of Barnstable Town Council, October 3rd, 7 p.m. I'd ask the clerk to please do roll call.
Councilors, Bender.
Here.
Crocker.
Here.
Cullum.
Here.
Flores.
Here.
Rapgrassetti.
Present.
Hebert.
Present.
Levesque.
Here.
Neary. Schnepp.
Here.
Steinhilber.
Here.
Tinsley. Here. Wallace.
Yep.
That's 11.
Thank you very much. We've established quorum. At this time, I would like to announce that in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, I must inquire whether anyone is recording this meeting, and if so, please make your presence known to me. I see one hand. Thank you very much. I'd ask you all to rise for a moment of pledge allegiance and a moment of silence. Thank you very much. I would ask our Assistant Town Manager to come forward. We're very fortunate tonight to have some professionals from retail with us, and we'd like to introduce them if we could. Give them a chance to say hi and welcome to Barnstable.
Good evening, councilors. Andy Clyburn, Assistant Town Manager. It's my pleasure this evening to introduce representatives from one of our newest retailers in town. We often talk about Hyannis being the economic hub of Cape Cod and the importance of our 132 corridor as the gateway to our community. The largest retail center along that corridor, as we know, is the Cape Cod Mall. I'm sure we've all seen the tremendous amount of construction ongoing over the past several months at the mall, and I'm pleased to be here tonight to introduce members from the mall and Target. While they may be known for their bullseye logo as well as their stylish and affordable merchandise, their mission caught my attention: to help all families discover the joy of everyday life. To me, that seems cohesively aligned with our own community objective of supporting quality of life here in Barnstable. As Target prepares to open their doors here in Hyannis, I'm proud to introduce and welcome Property Management Business Partner Sarah Tinsley and Cape Cod Mall Store Director Darren Holloway to this evening's council meeting.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening. Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Tinsley, and I am the Property Management Business Partner for the Hyannis Cape Cod store location. And this is Darren Holloway, the store director. I wanted to take a few moments tonight before I hand this over to Darren to thank the council for having us here this evening to talk about the new location, our excitement as we are just a few short weeks from our grand opening on October 20th. I've grown up watching these proceedings. No secret, my dad sits right over there. I've been a part of this community my entire life and even worked for the town. So I am so humbled to be able to speak here tonight and show my excitement to have this company that I've worked for 3 years joining the community that I love so much. I am so proud of the efforts of the Cape team that they put in. Like we just spoke, our mission is to bring the joy of everyday life to all families, and that is what the Cape store is doing for this community. Every single effort and every hour and sweat and some tears they put into this store will be seen when they open. So I am so excited for them to be here, and I'm going to hand it over to Darren to speak a little bit more.
Good evening, everyone. Darren Holloway. Again, thank you very much for having us here. So super excited to open our Target store in just a few weeks now. Our grand opening will be October 20th. And we're working hard to make sure that that happens and that we're ready to go with our team. So we'll be opening an 80,000 square foot space right in the mall, providing close to 200 positions, 200 jobs for the area. We have 140 of those filled already, and we're continuing to offer positions. We got about 60 more to fill. So we're excited to get that filled. And, just like Sarah said, we want to bring that joy of everyday life. So we have an affordable assortment of merchandise in our store, prioritizing infants and moms and families, and making sure that we really provide that place where everyone can come and get their daily shopping done, and one-stop shop for everything. So Target, if you do shop at Target or know much about the background, we definitely are focused on the community and making sure that we are spending time in the community, volunteering. Every year, Target, since 1962, has spent time providing projects through United Way, and we want to make sure that we continue that in our community here in Hyannis and on the Cape as well. We also work with Feeding America to fill, close to 1 million pounds of food and donations every year, and we're going to do the same thing here to continue that goal. We actually have our first donations pick up tomorrow before we even open our doors. So merchandise came in for food over the weekend, and we're making sure that whatever we can't sell, we're going to make sure that we donate that and provide for our communities. And that's about all I have. But thank you so much, and I'm really excited, and hopefully we'll see you all soon. All right.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Darren. Good luck. We're all wishing you well, and thank you for bringing jobs to Barnstable. With that said, I would open the floor for public comment. Please sign in. Respect the rules. It's 3 minutes. At 2 minutes and 45 seconds, the please conclude sign goes up. Welcome. How are you tonight?
Tina Carey, Hyannis Centerville. I'm here with more signatures on the petition to ban food and beer trucks from the Village Green and Main Street, Hyannis. In May of 2019 of this year, the Illinois Supreme Court ruled that food truck regulations are constitutional and that a city can protect restaurants from their wheeled competitors. The irony of all this is that the town does not allow food trucks on Veterans Beach or Calamus Beach because they don't want them to compete with the food shacks that they rent out to people. So the town has protected the people that rent from them, but the people who are paying taxes in this town have no protection. And everybody that I've spoken to, the new people that have signed are the Downtown Bistros, Toomey's, the Green Lotus Cafe, Kilwin's, the Duck Inn Pub, and AJ's Market. And I will continue to get signatures until I've reached every person on the street who sells food or liquor. This is a terrible slap in the face to the business community. It was a terrible summer this year for a lot of people. There were 2 restaurants that never opened this year, and from my travels, there are 3 more that have told me they won't be back next year. So this saturation of restaurants and liquor on Main Street has not helped anybody. And bringing in food and beer trucks on wheels, which are just restaurants from off Cape, and the food concessions that do go to the beaches that don't have food shacks that the town owns, they are all licensed out to one company in Wareham. So it's not even people from the town. So that should change too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to come forward?
Hi, my name is Bo Chu, and I live at 1 Main Street, which is code. And I'm going to sing. I brought my own timer.
Just so we're clear, though, we're not expecting any applause, right? You understand that this process.
You lay out the rules, and
They're the same rules for everybody, so please don't feel you're being singled out. We're not a give and take situation, and we're not an applause situation.
sometimes you
Thank you.
enforce it, sometimes you don't.
Yep.
Sometimes you speak against it, sometimes you don't. So, my sister was a yoga woman, and they used to do things like that, or like that, which would be acceptable, right? I mean, okay. Ready? I'm 228 already, I don't know. Okay, Cynthia. Lovell.
I'm sorry, you going to speak into the mic so they can hear you?
Lovell. Wouldn't it be lovely? All I want is a room somewhere far away from the cold night air, with one enormous chair. Oh, wouldn't it be lovely? 1 minute 34. Scene 2. Guys, this is for breakfast tomorrow. Bye bye, Miss American Pie. Take the Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Good old boys drinking whiskey and rye, singing "This'll be the day that I die." This is for Patricia McLean, who's having breakfast tomorrow at the Doubletree, where I'm going to see. She has a show on something unmentionable, but you can guess. Okay. Third song, 46 minutes I got. Oh, the follow-up song for Patricia McLean is "Go away from my window, leave at your own chosen speed. I'm not the one you want, babe, I'm not the one you need," which was an anti-love song that Joni Baez called.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to come forward tonight? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Osimo. I'm the Executive Director of the Massachusetts Breast Cancer Coalition and Cape Cod Coordinator for our sister organization, Silent Spring Institute. And I would like to thank our Town Manager, Mark Ells, and the Town Council for your support of both organizations over the past many years. I'm here this evening to share with you the 3 national health projects in which Silent Spring Institute is playing a lead role, and Massachusetts Breast Cancer Coalition is serving as a community partner. We believe that we need to keep you informed about what we're doing, and we always want you to feel free to reach out to us for information. The first project is funded by the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, NIEHS. It's the STEEP Superfund Research Program. The project is led by University of Rhode Island and includes researchers from Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health and Silent Spring Institute. Just yesterday, the STEEP team was here in Barnstable Town Hall to provide an update to Cape residents on results from private well water testing on Cape Cod for PFOS, as well as updates on studies of how PFOS enter groundwater from firefighting foams, wastewater, and other pollution sources, and on PFOS health effects. We are in the 3rd year of this 5-year project. The second project, also funded by NIEHS, is PFOS REACH, Research, Education, and Action for Community Health. This study is led by Silent Spring Institute, along with researchers from Northeastern University, Michigan State University, and community partners, Testing for Peace and Toxic Action Center. PFOS REACH is investigating PFOS exposures and their impacts on children's health here in Hyannis and at Peace Tradeport in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We've begun the recruitment at daycare centers, schools, and places of worship to identify 60 children between the ages of 4 and 6 for this study. We have just started the 2nd year of this 5-year project. Just today I was at the baby center recruiting, and I must say that it was a humbling experience meeting with families and children to do this work. But I'm very proud that we've had the support of this council and our town manager, Dan and Hans, and the whole team behind us to do this work in this beautiful community that we live in. And just last week, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, and the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, or ATSDR, announced that Hyannis will be part of a larger multi-study on PFOS health effects. Silent Spring is leading the study in Massachusetts, which will include both Hyannis and the town of Air, Team also includes researchers from Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health and Eastern Research Group, along with the community group People of Air Concerned About the Environment. The team will collect blood samples and health information from 1,000 adults and 300 children, about 2/3 of whom will come from Hyannis. The study will assess PFAS exposure and a range of health effects, including immune response, kidney function, thyroid disease, liver disease, glycemic parameters, diabetes, and neurobehavioral outcomes. We greatly appreciate the Town Council for writing a letter of support for this proposal and look forward to working with all of you as the projects develop. Massachusetts Breast Cancer Coalition and Silent Spring are pleased that we are receiving the support we need to do this important work toward providing a safer environment for our children, grandchildren, and future generations. Thank you for this opportunity to provide you with an update on these national projects, and thank you for the important work you do every day on behalf of all of us in this community. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, and also thank you for agreeing to participate on Channel 18 with a nice audible portion for our community. I think it'll be very informative. Glad you're going to exercise that. Thank you. Anyone else? Public comment? Going once, going twice. Hearing none, I'd close this portion of the hearing. And I'd ask if there's any council response to public comment. Councilors to my right. Yes, Councilor Hebert.
Thank you. Mrs. Osimo, thank you very much for that presentation. Very informative. Thank you for the work of Silent Spring. And congratulations on the birth of your new grandchildren, twins. Thank you.
Any other councilors to this side? Hearing none, I'm headed to my left side. Councilors, any response, comment? Hearing none, I'll close that portion of the meeting. And under Town Manager's communication, we are having a presentation, but Mr. Manager, please come forward. Yeah, he's coming.
Good evening, Mark Ells, Town Manager. I'll start with my report, and then we can go into each of the presentations this evening. This is the Town Manager's update for the period September 20th through October 3rd. We are proceeding with the tasks. In the updated budget action calendar for FY 2021 as scheduled, the Town Manager has issued his operating and capital budget instructions to staff, so we're well underway at this point. We've got proposed calendar year fee changes due on October 21st and a calendar year fee hearing on November 12th. If you can't attend the hearing, then we televise that, so you will be able to view it. I typically take any proposed fees under review for 30 days after the hearing. Welcome all comment. I take those under advisement and then make a determination for Town Manager fees. In this case, this will be for calendar year 20. We also do fiscal year fees in the spring, and those would be established for 2021 on July 1st. There's a scheduled joint meeting workshop with the school committee to review the financial conditions of the town on May 21st, 2019. Our budgets are available on our town website. We are pleased to report the Town of Barnstable Department of Public Works has provided the Town Council with the draft Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan. This draft CWMP will guide traditional and non-traditional efforts in Barnstable for the next 30 years, with the primary goal of reducing nutrient enrichment of our coastal estuaries and freshwater ponds, as well as the protection of public water supplies. Additional goals include supporting smart growth and economic development, coupled with providing solutions in areas where it has traditionally been difficult to site on-site systems, such as in areas with high groundwater and poor soils. The draft CWMP relies on both traditional methods of addressing wastewater in the form of centralized collection and treatment, but also invests heavily in alternative technologies in the short term to potentially minimize the need for centralized sewering in later phases of the plan. The town has been working diligently since 2015 to develop a plan that meets the needs of the community as well as the requirements of the Cape Cod Commission's 208 plan that was released in 2017. The 208 plan outlines the region's plan to meet the requirements of the Federal Clean Water Act. The town will host a series of public information sessions over the next 30 days, and I've provided you with the time, date, and location of each of these. I can certainly read them in. Tuesday, October 15th, 6:30 p.m., East Wing Conference Room, Barnstable County Complex. Monday, October 21st, 6:30 p.m., Austinville Village Library. Tuesday, October 22nd, 6:30 p.m., Barnstable Town Hall. Monday, October 28th, 6:30 p.m., Liberty Hall Club, Marston's Mills. We're also available for booking at additional dates. Let us know if you hear from anybody out there. We'll get to every village and every logical location. It'll be the Dan Santos show.
Mr. Manager,
Yes, sir.
in real estate, when we book something, we have to include food. So you might say, we'll bring cookies if you invite us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Food is good. The draft CWMP will be posted on the town's website beginning tomorrow. There is a special town council meeting scheduled for October 10th, at which time Dan Santos, Director of Public Works, will provide the town council with an overview of the draft CWMP. So you've all been provided a hard copy of Volume 1. There's also a digital form of all of the appendices. I think there's about 3,500 pages. So we tried to give you in that document the upfront portion. But if you need hard copies, if you have any problems, please let us know. We will certainly get you whatever you or our residents need to assist us in reviewing this draft plan. On September 26th, I attended the Cape Cod and Islands Water Protection Fund Board meeting. The board received an update from the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection, Gary Moran, regarding process and criteria for obtaining a determination of a 208 equivalent plan. We need to make sure that we're compliant with the state's determination that we're meeting we're meeting their requirements and certainly those of EPA and closer to us, the Cape Cod Commission, relevant to the 208 plan. Nate Keenan from the Mass Clean Water Trust also did a presentation regarding the state revolving fund loan program and reporting to us that the Department of Revenue had transferred $2.9 million to the trust for the month of July 2019 revenues from its 2.75% short-term rental tax. So that's an indication, though certainly a peak month, of the types of dollars that will be coming into the fund that this board will be administering, and I'll get to how that will be done in a minute. The board adopted bylaws as recommended by the bylaw subcommittee and voted to change the bylaw committee to be the bylaw and regulations committee, who have been charged with developing draft regulations for the full board's consideration. I was the chair of the bylaws committee. We were tasked with bringing in draft bylaws for the board's consideration by September. We delivered that, and those bylaws were ratified. I remain on this subcommittee. I don't know who the chair will be. What the regulations are is how these funds will be distributed. This was the entire discussion that we had leading up to the creation of this board. It's why at the time I recommended to you that certainly for the first 3 years that you have your town manager on this board. I will be an active participant on the subcommittee, able to bring this to the full body we're trying to do this for our December meeting. So I expect that's the next scheduled board meeting. So I expect that between now and then we'll meet as frequently as necessary so that we can develop this. Any and all input was certainly appreciated. I have requested my staff, specifically our finance director, to advise me on how he recommends that these funds be administered so that we certainly are compliant with mass law, but also that we do it in a way that we believe is equitable and appropriate. So I'll be bringing those forward to the subcommittee as part of our larger discussion. I've given you the link to this website of the board, so you can certainly go in and look at any and all activities that are occurring on that board. Last week was National Employ Older Workers Week, and to celebrate, the Mass Hire Cape and Islands Workforce Board recognized 3 local organizations on Tuesday, September 24th, for their outstanding efforts to employ and engage older workers with the 2019 Age Forward Employers Awards. Lynn Poyon asked me to bring this up so that you can all see. So you probably have anticipated what I'm going to say. Congratulations to Highline Cruises, the Town of Barnstable Recreation Division, and the Cape Cod Chronicle. The median age in Barnstable County was 52 years old in 2017 and is rising. If an organization wants to thrive and grow here, it's critical that they adapt to the aging of the available workforce. Winners in the Age Forward Employer Award have learned how to recruit, engage, and retain older workers. Older workers are a key segment of each of these organizations' staffing and critical to their success. All of this year's winners were nominated by employees proud of their employers and satisfied with their jobs. Barnstable Recreation would like to send a special thanks to Irene Almer for her nomination. Irene works as one of our beach gate attendants. Recreation Director Patty Machado said, "It is so exciting that we are being honored for the work of our staff does as a team, and also because Irene took the time to share what so many of our over 55 and older staff do to make the community a better place to live." This year's winners represent the resiliency of our region's business community and illustrate its ability to adapt to emerging trends. Each organization is unique, noted the Workforce Board Executive Director Kara Galvin, but we hope that by shining a spotlight on what works for these age-forward employees, we will encourage others to make change in how they relate to those job seekers over 55. Congratulations again to Highline Cruises, Town of Barnstable Recreation Division, and Cape Cod Chronicle. On October 2nd, Barnstable Town Hall hosted the STEEP, and I've given you what that acronym means in parentheses, Science Day, with a 10 a.m. and a 12 p.m. Presentation by the STEEP team consisting of Silent Spring Institute, University of Rhode Island, and Harvard University School of Public Health and Engineering and Applied Sciences. They discuss PFAS research, preliminary findings relevant to private well study, ongoing PFAS research in the Cape Cod region, and PFAS health effects and strategies for prevention. The meetings were well attended, and I was pleased to see a full room at the 10 a.m. session of high school students from our region learning and engaging in the discussions regarding this important issue. This room was full. In fact, we had to tell high schools that there was no more seating capacity. I was also proud to see BHS students here from our new Environmental Technologies program, as well as Sturgis School and others here. It was exciting. And they are very interested in participating in this moving forward. And I've had schools already reach out to me. I've offered myself and our staff to participate to whatever level necessary to help them in their education of our youth, because I truly believe there's probably no better investment of our time than with our youth on this issue. On Saturday, October 5th, Barnstable will host the Big Fix event for 2019. Lynn, you have to remember to tell me to bring that hammer with me for the Big Fix, okay? There are 16 homes of seniors, veterans, and disabled Barnstable residents getting much-needed repairs and upkeep with a record number of almost 400 volunteers this year. In fact, they had to turn away, I believe, volunteers because they just didn't, it was too much for one day. This year, to transform these properties, I will be passing the hammer from Barnstable to Orleans. John Kelly, the town administrator from Orleans, will be at Barnstable High School to accept the hammer, with the program beginning promptly at 8:30. So Barnstable will do theirs. We were the original host of this a decade ago, and then they're off to Orleans next year. So we welcome any and all to come to that opening ceremony, and they can learn more, and maybe we can have a second day to continue this wonderful effort. That concludes this portion of my town manager report.
Any questions on the issues that were brought forward at this point? I'm looking to my right. Councilor Snep.
Thank you for your report, Mark. And quick question on the Big Fix. 16 lucky homeowners are going to be helped. Do we have any idea if there was a greater need than is being able to be
There
helped?
is. Okay. There is. It's a capacity. It's the ability to do it all. How many can you do one day, one effort? So perhaps when there is, we can coordinate a discussion to continue something beyond that.
So did we collect that information, or did HAC do that?
HAC.
HAC does it.
Yes.
Okay. That might be good feedback for us to think about
Absolutely.
doing some other housing.
I could
programs
actually
going forward.
ask HAC to come in as a follow-up if you would like.
That would be great.
I'll do that during town manager communication.
One other quick question. I'm very excited to have this binder and the presentation tonight on our comprehensive waste management plan draft. What is the schedule for this to become finalized?
We were looking to do this by the end of this calendar year, subject to review, comment, and potential modification. Later tonight, actually, next presentation once I'm done, will be Mark Milne with my assistance, though Mark doesn't need that, to go over the financial policy issues that we as a community and you as our legislative body need to consider as we move forward. We certainly, I believe, have satisfied the financial planning for a CWMP. Our discussion is implementation. This isn't something that's required in the level of detail we're going to get into and begin a discussion over the next 12 months is what I envision, because about 12 months from now, I think we're going to be well on our way to doing many of the tasks in phase one of what you're going to hear about at your special meeting next Thursday night, where Dan Santos will be here to review this document. It'll give you 1 week to at least take a look at it, and then certainly develop questions, input, comment. We also, depending on what our public says to us, and then we get into the regulatory side of it, and there'll be many questions that will come up during that. But tentatively, we'd like to complete this by the end of the calendar year if possible. Yes?
For further clarification on that, we met in committee, as we have been, to help develop the whole program, and as it came forward, we had great discussions about how do we roll it out, how do we introduce it. So this is intentional 1, 2, 3 step. The first step is to let everybody have the draft in their hand and to have the first discussion on finances. We all are going to endure some real sleepless nights putting forward a plan of this magnitude and nature. So we're going to have the first discussion on finances tonight, but you're more than welcome after reviewing the plan to ask at the end of the 10th session to bring Mark Milne back again for more financial questions. So don't feel that we're not going to address finances often as it needs. It's the one that we in the field will have to bring forward, defend, and have great discussions on with our village associations and with many owners. So we're going to be very comprehensive, very thorough here. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Paul Heaver.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mark. The $2.9 million that is currently in the fund of the short-term rental. So that says to me that some towns have already started to collect that fee. Is any of that necessarily from our town?
I can give you a simple answer of yes. I mean, Mark Milne, perhaps in the beginning of his next presentation, might be able to share with you some of the, he kind of extrapolated what he thinks generally that might be. We don't have those numbers. DOT is going to report not only the total amount, but also town by town the amount. I don't know that they've posted that yet.
So the people who collected those taxes started, they must have voluntarily signed up to be short-term rentals. Am I correct in saying that? Because we're not done with our regulations on that.
I think they're two different issues. I'll let Mark.
Okay,
I'll let Mark give you at least his understanding of how DOR is doing that when he comes up.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Coming back this way, Council Biedenbender.
Two very quick, simple questions. The first was regarding all those meetings that you're going to be doing at various associations and town halls, so on and so forth. It does say it's public information sessions. Will there be opportunity for the public to ask questions, or is it pretty much a presentation?
I think there's a back and forth on that. You're expecting some level of interaction, yeah.
Excellent,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yes.
The second thing is regarding STEEP. Is that available online to watch by any chance? Was that taped?
I thought that it was. Lynn Poyat? Yes, she says yes, it was.
Okay, great. So I'll connect with Lynn.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we'll be airing it as well. We'll put it on Channel 18, so yeah.
Councils to my left. Yes, Council Levesque.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just in response to the the big fix, I was one of the lucky ones that actually got in before they made the cutoff. So I'll be actually working, the privilege of working at the oldest house in Hyannis on Pleasant Street. And so we'll be there for the ceremony with the group that I'm with. But I also know some groups that were willing to volunteer that I mentioned to and called in Ben Fleck myself and spoke with her in regards to overflow projects is what they're calling it. And she told me that they will be putting those together and presenting them. And I said, well, if anything else, if you could let me know directly, but also let the planning and development know as well of any overflow projects so that we can move forward. And again, there are more volunteers out there that are looking to help, and very skilled workers as well to help improve those properties. So, if any information I have, of course, I will send it your way, and I'll also send it your way to Councilor Schnapp. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Yes.
Yes, for these open fora that we have here, how are we communicating that to the public through civic associations, Facebook? Like, what are the channels?
Any and all.
Okay.
Yeah, Lynn will help Dan coordinate our normal public communication process, but if you have any other suggestions, we'll
Paper,
certainly...
all of it. Because there's a lot of people that are, even though we've been talking about this for 8 or 10 years, they're still shocked about it. So I think the more we shower them with facts about where they can ask their questions and air their concerns, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Collins. Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mark, just a question on the Cayman Islands Water Protection Fund. Paul asked a similar question in terms of how we're going to break down that $2.9 million. But at the same time, how will the funds be distributed? Is this going to be project by project, or based on what a town has eventually told what it has put in to that fund? Do we get that amount back, or is it just a general pool of money?
To be determined. What we do know is that the projects that are deemed by the SRF program to be eligible is where these dollars will come in and be utilized. We have not determined, and that's what this regulations committee will recommend to the full board to do, is how that 2.9 and all the other dollars that begin to flow in here forward will be distributed. And so that's the upcoming discussion. Certainly Barnstable, percentage-wise, may be the largest contributor to this. In our favor, though, is that we probably have some of the most active wastewater efforts, certainly on Cape Cod, and we have been a frequent recipient of state revolving funds. So that's good news for us, and I think we will probably end up having discussions where we have a very engaged leadership here in you all, and so you're ready to take on these issues, discuss them, move forward where appropriate. That will probably result in dollars coming to the town of Barnstable. So my guess is I'm going to be having a discussion about if we're using, we don't want to, I don't think anybody would want us to be using all the dollars. We're looking, I'm going into it trying to make sure that this is equitably distributed to all communities on the Cape, and certainly the town of Barnstable. And that's what I'll bring to this subcommittee and try to see if we can adopt regulations. But I will keep you advised as we progress on this.
And just one other, are these board meetings open to the public?
Yes, they are.
And where are they normally held?
They are held up at the county.
Oh, at the county?
Yeah, up at the county complex, and you can access the information at that link that I've given you. It's on the Cape Cod Commission staff are the administrative support to this board.
Just one final question. As you promulgate these regulations, as you move forward, will funds have to be spent within a certain specified time? 1 fiscal year, 2 fiscal years, or is that an open-ended?
That's to be determined.
So everything's...
That's to be determined. The funds accrue until they're applied. So the fund will just build.
Well, that should be a fun committee, figuring out how to spend money.
We don't hold the money either, just so you know.
But
Yeah.
you'll,
The trust holds the money.
You will tell the trust how it will be distributed.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think for a little further clarification, if I could, when all this began, Barnstable had the position that Barnstable doesn't want any more than what Barnstable contributes. And we tried to make the discussion about everybody should get what they contribute. And a number of them thought that we were asking a lot at that. And then we tried to make the discussion about, well, we're going to be shovel ready. So if you just want to give shovel ready projects money, we'll go that way too. And I think they're really thinking about what it means. And I believe we'll have a great representative at the table. And we have a lot of discussion to go before they realize how they can disperse the money. The worst thing, though, that we've asked Mark to carry to the table is that if they are putting money aside on hopes and permits, on dreams, on this, they'll be carrying money forward for a great number of years that won't be used for the purpose it was intended. So really, I think the point that Mark's going to, and his committee has to drill down on is how do we get money to projects that are ready to go so we start to work and save the environment. Councilor Rob Cassetti?
Thank you, Mark. For the report, I also am very excited to see this binder. And I can tell you right now, I'm going to take you up on your offer to have Dan come out to it, to coordinate with Jim Danhauser of the Civic Association to put on a presentation there. Thank you.
Great. I'll even ask Dan, any civic groups that you haven't reached yet, reach out to them. Yep. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. I guess we're ready for the next
Okay,
round.
this will be myself and Mark Milne. Thank you.
Again, councilors, Mark Milne is a master at putting these paperwork and approaches together so that they are sensible, legible, and we all can understand, but it doesn't come without some type of measure of consistency or standards. So please feel free to ask the questions, and please feel free to know we will revisit this again and again until we have the best plan possible. So, thank you, Mark. How are you tonight?
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, councilors. Good to see you all this evening. I'd like to begin by thanking several individuals, including council leadership, town manager Els, assistant town manager Clyburn, DPW staff, including Director Santos, assistant director Steen, town engineer Bodine, and our legal staff of Ruth Weil, Charlie McLaughlin, and Dave Houghton, who provided me valuable feedback throughout the development of this plan. And I really appreciate that valuable feedback, and especially walking me off the ledge when the number hit almost $1 billion in 30 years. So I want to emphasize, though, that I did pass out 2 documents. If everybody got a folder, there's 2 documents here, the slides from tonight as well as the summary financial plan. But I want to emphasize that this financial plan is merely a roadmap. It doesn't have to be strictly followed as we implement the comprehensive wastewater management plan. But it's designed to open up a dialogue and talk about how we want to approach the financing of this plan. And what we have right now included in the plan can be changed. It's very durable. We can steer it, control it, move it in different directions. And so I just want to say that at the very beginning, because the financial challenges are going to be very large, and they're going to change as the economy changes, as well as changes in technology occur. We're going to have to be nimble, and we've built a tool to allow us to easily change the projections on this model. And so we do have something in place going forward that can be modified as decisions are made. You've seen this map several times before. This is the plan. It's been broken into 3 phases, with the area in red, the number 1 stage to be addressed. The total cost for collection and conveyance and treatment associated with this plan is $863 million, and that includes a factor for inflation. That's almost $88,000 per parcel. There's about 9,800 parcels involved in this plan. The cost of this plan: the collection and conveyance is $640 million. The treatment costs are $224 million. Again, those both include inflation. Financing of all that project cost is estimated to be $168 million, and project management is estimated to be $30 million over this 30-year period. That's over $1 billion. The largest capital project this town will probably ever experience. This is the first phase. Our plan concentrates mostly on the first phase. We've broken this down. This is a possible segregation of the various projects within the first phase. You've seen this map before. It lays out a method to potentially an implementation method for the first phase of the plan. We've broken the cost down by these individual projects and the number of parcels impacted. The timeline. This is a 30-year plan for construction, but a 50-year plan in total. The last bond issue will be in year 30, and it'll be a 20-year amortization period, so we're looking at a 50-year plan here. So how are we going to pay for all this construction cost? Well, we're going to use a long-term bonding program, and we estimate the principal subsidies on those bonds over that 30-year period to be about $112 million, and I'll show you how we arrived at that estimate. Many of these bonds are going to be issued through the Mass Clean Water Trust, the state's revolving loan fund, but not all of them can be. They have to serve all 351 communities in the Commonwealth, as well as multiple districts and authorities, and so we're not going to be able to finance all of our projects through the Clean Water Trust. However, the 3 programs that they do have are that projects associated with nutrient enrichment reduction offer a 0% financing rate, which we believe many of our projects, of course, are associated with nutrient reduction, and so we'll qualify for those, we anticipate. We are also a housing choice community, which offers a 1.5% borrowing rate for housing choice communities, and the standard loan rate's 2%. Of course, many of the projects we're going to have to go to the capital markets as well, like we traditionally do every single year. And we've averaged about 2.5% interest rate on our loans through the capital market. So this plan assumes the bonds are going to be amortized over 20 years using a level payment method with an average rate of 2%. We blend all that together with the different loan borrowing rates. In anticipation of this long, protracted, multiple bond issue program, we've created a new website called barnstableinvestorrelations.com. The goals of this website are to increase demand for our bond issues. This is a best practice in the municipal arena for borrowing programs. It's going to simplify the municipal credit research and surveillance that investors try to do when they're just looking to invest in your bonds. And so we wanted to be proactive and create this website, which will house all of the financial information that they're looking for when they make a determination as to whether or not to invest in our bonds. And since we're going to be doing this for 30 years for very large amounts, we want to make sure we can increase the competition for our bonds. And the best way to get the good rates on bond issues in the capital markets is to increase competition. So I just wanted to make that known that we have done that, taken that proactive step. We've identified 8 different funding sources to contribute to this program, including the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund, and I'll go over each one of these. Sewer assessments, with the local meals tax, the local rooms tax, including tax on short-term rentals, sewer utility charges as new connections come into the system, investment earnings that we earn on excess cash deposits, systems development charges, and a general fund contribution that will also be considered in funding this program. There's no targeted federal or state grants. Most of those grants go directly through the State Revolving Loan Fund, but we will always keep an ear and an eye out for any opportunities that will only enhance the program if we can get a targeted federal or state. The Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund. This is a dedicated fund within the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust, as Town Manager Ellis was discussed. The source of the revenue is 2.75% excise tax on traditional lodging as well as short-term rental. So it's not just short-term rental. It's also a tax on hotels, motels, bed and breakfast, and other types of lodging. So it covers the whole inventory of those types of lodging. It's overseen by the governing board, of which our town manager is a member of. There are also 3 non-voting members: the Cape Cod Commission Executive Director, the Martha's Vineyard Executive Director, and the Town Manager of Nantucket. However, they currently are not members of the fund because they're not under, Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket are not under the 208 plan, so they're currently not members of the fund. However, they could be in the future, but the tax, the 2.75% tax, does not apply to them yet, not until they become members of the fund. So here's our projection for the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund revenue. This chart on the left illustrates the total room sales by community for the fiscal year end 2019, which just finished in June. This is 12 months worth of room sales for the 15 Cape towns. They total based on the amount of tax that was reported to each community and the tax rate that they assess locally. We calculated it to come out to be $276 million worth of room sales Cape-wide for the entire fiscal year. That does not include short-term rentals. This is just hotel, motels, B&B, and other lodging houses that was traditionally subject to that 4 to 6% local excise tax. As you can see, Barnstable is almost 20% of that, the largest contributor. To back into our revenue estimate that we're using for subsidies, we used this as a comparison to try to justify the revenue estimate that we're predicting for a subsidy in our program over the next 30 years. However, we're going to get subsidies from the State Revolving Fund as well, but we're just going to compare. We're going to be conservative here and just compare this to what we think the local tax from short-term rental will be. So if we look at the total hotel motel room sales for 2019 of $276 million, we're estimating the short-term rental market to be about 75% of that. We have heard some people feel it could be 100% or more of the hotel motel market, but we're going to use a conservative number of 75%. And that will give us about $484 million that is subject to the 2.75% tax. That would generate over $13 million in a full fiscal year. Projected out over 30 years, that's about $600 million that this fund could generate to help offset the cost of this program. And Barnstable subsidies about $112 million, or about 19% of that, and that's roughly what our room sales were for hotels and motels Cape-wide. So I think we kind of back into that to validate that estimate. As Mark mentioned, the fund received its first payment. That was for 1 month, the month of July. July is going to be the largest month, July and August. Those will be the two largest months. After that, the number's going to go down. But we'll need a full year to see what happens with this fund. If it gets to $13 million a year, we'll see. We're going to need a couple of years. There's going to be compliance issues with on the short-term rental side anyways. The hotels and motels are already complying. But we'll see what happens with this market. Of course, regulations could also, how we regulate the short-term rental market across the Cape could impact the amount of tax that is generated in this area as well. The hotel motel room tax. This chart illustrates the trend in this revenue source over the past several years. 2012 was the first year we had a full year's worth of tax at 6%. That's when we increased the tax from 4 to 6%. Since then, this revenue source has averaged increase of 3.1% over the past 7 years. So our financing plan includes a growth of 3% a year going forward for this revenue source. 1/3 of this revenue source is dedicated for this plan's purpose. The other 2/3 go into the general fund currently. And that was done through the special legislation that we adopted. The local meals tax trend, same thing. 2012 was the first year we had a full year's worth of meals tax revenue. It was around 1.2 million. This has grown to 1.6 million. You can see every year since this tax has been in place, the sales have grown and the tax has grown on an average of 4.4% a year. We're using a 4% growth estimate going out for funding this plan. The short-term rental tax. Again, the hotel motel room sales totaled $51 million in fiscal year 19, generating over $3 million in rooms tax. We believe the short-term rental business to be estimated at 75% currently. This will take several years to mature, but eventually we expect this revenue source to exceed $2 million a year. Not as much as the hotel motel business, but a sizable sum of money. And we project that growth, once it hits that $2 million mark, to grow 3% a year. And 100% of this revenue you have dedicated to the comprehensive management of water and wastewater. So this is another funding source for the plan. Sewer assessments. There are two components to sewer assessments, which is specific benefit facilities and general benefits facilities. Now, the specific benefit facilities include things, but not limited to, things like sewer mains to which a lateral line from an individual abutting property can be connected, and pumping stations that are required to service a specific project area. General benefit facilities include, but aren't limited to, things like pump stations, trunk and forest mains, lands, rights-of-ways, easements, which provide a benefit to or an advantage to a larger area exceeding that served by the specific benefit facilities. And ordinarily, these facilities serve a major part of a pumping district. So, for example, this is the map, you've seen this before, of the Vineyard Wind route, where we will be placing some sewer infrastructure. We're putting in a gravity line, force main, and a pump station. There are only about 250 properties that directly abut that. However, that infrastructure has the capability of serving over 1,600 properties. So that could be considered a general benefit facility. And one of our policy decisions is to determine how are we going to break down specific benefit facilities from general benefit facilities, and then how are we going to allocate that cost. And there are two methods used that you could allocate that cost out, and that won't be a topic of discussion tonight, but we'll be bringing that forward at a later date. And all of this we're going to put in a comprehensive ordinance and bring it forward to you for your consideration.
The financing plan assumes that an average sewer assessment of $18,000 amortized over a 30-year period with a 2.5% interest rate. This plan proposes an upper limit of $20,000 to be placed on that assessment, indexed for inflation. As construction costs go up, we want to index that maximum cap for an assessment at the same rate to cover that inflation. The proposal to allow property owners to apportion the future tax bills for up to 30 years. We've already actually done this, so we have the authority to allow them to apportion it to 30 years already. And the interest rate that we set on the assessment can be anywhere, can be set at a rate of 2% above the net rate of interest chargeable to the town for which we borrowed the money for to do that project. So it can be anywhere from 0 to 2%. We borrow at 2% for the project, we can charge the assessment a 2% to a 4%. And we can make that determination project by project, or we can put it in an ordinance and make it the same across. Another policy decision that we'll have to make that will be included in a comprehensive sewer ordinance. Here's an example of what those charges would look like under different scenarios at different $5,000 levels. At a maximum cap of $20,000, the quarterly amount added to a tax bill would be $183. Systems development charges. This is a fee in the utility industry that is charged to new customers of a utility system to pay for the investments made into the backbone of the system for the capacity consumed by that new user. We have made millions of dollars of investments in our facilities to create capacity which exists, and we're going to be making millions more of investments to create additional capacity. These fees are designed to charge the new users that come into the system for the portion of the capacity that they are going to consume, for which we made previously invested millions of dollars to build. So it's just another potential funding source to offset the cost of this program. And again, another policy decision that we can make going forward. Sewer utility charges. This will be a major source of revenue for this program. As we start connecting properties to the sewer system, we're going to create a much more robust user base and associated user revenue associated with running this operation, and that revenue can be used not only for operating, but also for the investment that we made to build the treatment facilities or expand the treatment facility. The average residential bill right now is about $400, and at full build out with almost 10,000 more customers, we're looking at $10 million a year by year 30 in new revenue. So this will grow. The chart on the right shows the number of anticipated connections. Another policy decision we have to make is when are we going to require people to connect? If we build the sewers and they don't connect, we're not going to make this revenue, and it's not going to help the financial plan. So we're going to have to, at some point, decide what's the time point that we're going to mandate people to connect once they have the ability to do so. The general fund contribution. This plan includes a $3 million annual contribution from the general fund. It begins in fiscal year 2022 at $300,000, increases $300,000 a year until it reaches $3 million annually. We're trying to bring this contribution in over an extended period of time to minimize the impact on the rest of the other capital and operating budget. But it could be accomplished in several ways. We could redirect a portion of the existing levy or other general fund revenue source. We can dedicate certain categories of new revenue growth to the program. We could reduce expenditures in other areas. Or we could raise the tax levy through 3 different mechanisms: an override, a debt exclusion, or a capital exclusion, or some combination of all. But the plan does include a general fund contribution. And that came about really when we accelerated it from a 60 to a 30-year plan. We had to do something in order to help implement a viable financial plan. So here's a summary of the funding sources. Again, the program's going to cost just over $1 billion. About 11% of that will be covered through principal subsidies that we'll receive from the state, as well as the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund. Sewer assessments cover about 24% of the total cost. Investment earnings, 1%. General fund contribution, $70 million. Systems development charges, about $20 million. User rate revenue, $128 million. And most of the funding coming from the Meals and Rooms tax, which includes the new tax on short-term rentals. The cost to the property owner, there will be three components. The sewer assessment, which will be assessed by the town after the project's completion, with the option to add it to a tax bill for up to 30 years. A systems development charge, which would be paid to the town at the time of connection. And a connection cost, which is the responsibility of the homeowner, and they would have to pay that to a private contractor. And that's going to be different for every homeowner, depending upon how far they are from the street and where their connection comes out of their home. Once connected to the system, those are all one-time charges, but once connected to the system, they'll receive a quarterly sewer utility bill from the town based on their usage. Possible homeowners assistance that we can provide. We've already done the 30-year amortization for a sewer assessment at a lower interest rate. We could look into creating a revolving loan fund similar to the county septic program. This would require a capital investment for a number of years. We could issue loans to help cover systems development charges and connection costs at a low interest rate. And we can reinvest the interest that we earn on this program back into the loan program and to cover our administrative costs. There's also the possibility that we could manage a connection program. We would bid this out and assist homeowners in bidding this out and hiring contractors to do the connections. But I would caution us, doing a program like that will require more time, more staff, and very large amount of work that we would have to manage. But there is an ability in the law that allows us to do that. Here's the sample cost of the property owner. There's those one-time charges for a sewer assessment, connection costs, and a system development charge at $25,000. If those were elected to be apportioned and if we had a revolving loan program, coupled with a sewer utility bill, the annual or the quarterly cost for a homeowner under these assumptions would be just under $500 a quarter. The sewer assessment would last for 30 years. The connection and system development charge would last for 10 years, and a sewer utility bill would be an annual cost. So summarizing the policy decisions that we're going to be bringing forward, how will the town differentiate between general benefit facility costs and specific benefit facility costs? And what assessment method will we use to allocate those costs? What limit, if any, will we set on the maximum amount of a sewer assessment? What interest rate will we charge on the sewer assessments? What amortization period will we use? I think we've already settled that one with a 30-year period. And when will we require a property abutter to hook up? What bond amortization period will be authorized? Will we authorize bond amortization beyond 20 years? Right now, this plan has a 20-year amortization period on the bonds. We could go longer on some of these projects. We could go as high as 30 years. Will the general fund contribute to the program? Another policy decision. This wouldn't be part of an ordinance. This would be an annual operating budget decision that we would have to make. And how much and what mechanism will we use? Will we include a systems development charge? And should we pursue that special legislation to create a revolving loan fund? And should the town administer that connection program? Finally, this is an example of the tool that we've developed that can be easily modified. You can see there's a lot of different assumptions that are built into this financial projection. We have almost 30 assumptions, and we could add some more. The first column under the current plan shows all of the assumptions that we've currently built into this plan as part of the submission that we'll be making. Column A illustrates what if we doubled the general fund contribution? What kind of impact would that have on the assessment, for example? So if you look at the highlighted boxes in column A or column B, if we doubled the general fund contribution to $6 million from $3 million, the average sewer assessment charge could drop from $18 million or $18,000. 10,000. Column C illustrates, well, what if we didn't want to provide a general fund contribution? What would the average assessment look like? And that would go up to $25,000. Column D illustrates, well, what if we extended our bond amortization from 20 to 30 years? How would that impact the sewer assessment? We could get those potentially down to $14,000 on average. And column E illustrates, what if we didn't do a systems development charge? What and how would we cover that? One way to cover that would be the increase to general fund contribution. And that's an illustration of what that would be. That would require another $1 million annually from the general fund. And finally, the last column illustrates, what if the council took no action? If you didn't do anything previously, if you didn't do what you did before, dedicating meals taxes, dedicating rooms taxes, what would this program look like? We'd be looking at $40,000 a year assessments and a $9 million general fund contribution. So by taking the action that you already have, you significantly reduce those requirements of this program. And we have this tool can be used, and going forward, we can make modifications to this. We are not tied to the plan that we submitted as part of our comprehensive wastewater management plan. We can work on making any changes to these financial projections that you want going forward. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilors, any question? Yes, Councilor Neary.
Thank you, Mr. President and Mark, for your presentation. Looking at call it the bird's eye view or the satellite view of this, obviously the yeoman's funding of this is coming from rooms and meals tax. And I'm sure this has gone through the mental processes, but we've been in a robust economy for quite a few years now, and not to be a worst case scenario person, should economy fail, change, whatever, that I would think would have the greatest impact on revenue source. People stop traveling, stop coming to the Cape, stop going out to eat. Which then makes me think about the bond term. If revenue drops, the job that you and the staff have done on maintaining our excellent bond rating, keeping our interest rate low, then makes me think that locking in maybe longer term bond rates while things are good might be a prudent move as well. I'm sure all these kind of gyrations you've gone through, maybe that's what's kept you up at night as well, but I just kind of throw that out there as a question, and maybe this tool, once we dig into it, you could walk through those, the what ifs. What if, rooms and meals tax drop by 10% or drop by 20%? Your thought?
Please feel free.
Yes, no, it's an excellent point that we have considered. And it does make me not sleep at night, because we will have another recession or two over the life of this program, I'm sure. But we will also have good years like we're having now. And I think when you smooth that out over a 30-year period, the projections that we're using, we feel comfortable with. We also believe that an economic stimulus program like this, where we're going to be putting $1 billion or $800 to $900 million into the local economy, could also help that as well. In room sales and meal sales, as more people will be working, the jobs it'll create, and so forth. So yeah, it's these types of consumer taxes are much more volatile than property taxes. And one of the reasons why Massachusetts enjoys a good, stable outlook overall is because most of the budgets are funded through property taxes and not through income taxes like in many other states. So we haven't had a lot of experience in building long-term financing programs with consumer-type taxes like this, but we believe that the assumptions that we're using are conservative, but we can absolutely scale them back for those who are uncomfortable with those, to see what the impact would be in other areas of the program, and what would we need to raise through assessment or a general fund contribution, for example, if those did not materialize.
Councilor Smith?
Thank you, Mr. President. Impressive document, Mark. I know there's a lot of work that went into this. Just to clarify what some of the assumptions you've made, the cost to the property owner, it appears that 2 of them would be involuntary whether they decide to connect or not, and that would be the sewer assessment and the system development charge. So as long as we put the pipes in the ground, whether they connect or not, they're going to be assessed that amount. Is that true?
Only the sewer assessment, not the systems development charge.
Not the system.
That would be charged at the time they connect.
At the time okay, so it'd just be that one. So at the moment, it's the 18,000 that they could either finance or pay in one.
Correct.
Looking at the map that we currently have of what's proposed to be sewered over the 30 years, obviously there'll be phases and some property owners might not be affected for 20 years, right? And then there's other homeowners that will never be impacted. And I'm assuming that the only contribution that they'll be making is their portion of their property taxes that go to the general fund. Is that right?
That's correct. If there's a general fund contribution, then yeah, that's indirectly their contribution.
Okay. So would that be a potential policy consideration that we might want to broaden the participation of the entire community in paying for the sewer connections of those who have to? I'm just throwing that out there as
It is. That would be a policy decision that you would make.
it's not currently on your list, but it's something we could add as a policy consideration.
Yes.
Okay. And let's see, I think I had a third question, but it has escaped me for now, so thank you. I will.
Councilor Rafferty?
Thank you very much, Mark, for this. I know a lot of work has been put into this, and there's going to be a lot of questions and a lot of major decisions going forward. Just to dovetail off Councilor Schnapp's question about everybody apportioning, something towards this, you mentioned there's 98,000, or I think 98,000 parcels in the town of Barnstable, or in this plan.
9,800.
Or 9,800, excuse me. So, but that's not the total number of parcels in the town of Barnstable. So I think that's where you're going. So I definitely would want to take a look at per parcel on this, even if you weren't going to be hooked up to sewer. You talked about also the connection, managing the connections. That you'd have to pay prevailing wage if the town managed something like that. Would you have to, as opposed to private, where they wouldn't have to pay prevailing wage? And I would think that maybe communities could get together, or neighbors could get together and do it a little bit more economically, rather than relying on the town to do that. Are we too large a community to be eligible for USDA? We are.
Yes, we are.
Okay. So down the road, any kind of federal grants or whatnot, we might be party to if we do another recovery and infrastructure initiative through the Fed. Well, it's a big bite, but I think too the fact that we've reduced the plan from 60 years to 30 years, I think is going to have a significant impact. Not only, will have impact financially, but I think it will have an impact on everybody's quality of life in our Alwarta. So I think that's important. So, thank you.
Councilors? Yes, Councilor Beden-Bender.
Thank you, President Crocker. Wow, that was sobering. I can kind of feel your agita, but I can't even imagine. So thank you. That was incredibly thorough and gives us an awful lot to think about, and we'll continue to think about. One thing that I wanted to confirm. I thought you said at the start of this was a 50-year plan. I know we had been at 60, then we had gone to 30, and I thought when you opened up the conversation, you said something about 50 years. So this is a 50-year plan?
30 years for construction.
Okay.
And then that last bond issue is going to take 20 years to amortize.
Great. Following up on my fellow councilors' comments regarding the number of parcels, that was a train of thought where I was headed to, that no matter where you live in the town, you benefit from all of us having clean water. And if you're driving through Hyannis, you are
you are enjoying other parts of the town that need that sewer infrastructure. So I think headed in that, I am in that same direction. And I wanted to ask you, what were the total number of parcels that we have in the town? I know you said 9,800, but that's just part of this plan. So what's the total number that we have?
We have about 29,000 parcels, 25,000 of them which are residential. The other are commercial, industrial.
Then on the Cape and Islands Wastewater Protection Fund, the slide that had the bar graph, I just wanted to confirm a couple data points. You mentioned the 276 million. I just wanted to confirm that was Cape-wide, correct?
15 towns on the Cape.
Okay. And you said it didn't include the short-term rental or the B&B section. That was it.
Includes B&Bs, but not short-term rentals.
Okay. Yep. You also made a comment that I didn't understand. It was confusing. It was right after you had mentioned the 276 million, and you explained that. And then you mentioned that some estimate that 75 to 100% are short-term rentals.
No, some of the estimates that I've heard are that the short-term rental market is 100% or more of the hotel motel market, but we're using 75% of the hotel motel market for our estimates.
Okay. Yep. Okay. And then regarding the sewer assessment, when we had been talking about the Centerville to Vineyard Wind project, we had talked about 5,100 for individual parcels. I'm assuming that that relates to the connection piece, that when you did your 3 ways that people will have to pay, I'm assuming that 5,100 is what you've incorporated into, where is it? I think it was, where was that? I don't see where it was now.
That would be the assessment. Go back to the slide here. That project has the ability to service 1,640 properties. So if that cost of $8.5 million was considered under a policy decision to be a general benefit facility, and we were going to allocate that out to all 1,640 properties, and not just the 250 that correctly bought it, that would be about $5,200 a parcel. Now that's a parcel. I mean, that's
right,
not
so
how you allocate it out.
Where does that fit in the cost to the property
That's the
owner?
sewer assessment.
Okay. Okay.
That's we're estimating $18,000 on average. That one happens to be particularly low.
Yeah, I was about to
because
say
there's
that's
so
cheap.
many parcels eligible that could be served by that infrastructure.
Okay.
That's not going to happen everywhere.
All right. Thank you. And that was a specific benefit area, correct?
That was a
That was
general
a
benefit
general.
area. All these little streets that you see outside of that main route,
Yep.
those could be considered specific benefit areas.
Gotcha. Then my final question is, you made a note here. At some point, there was a comment of when the project is complete. You know, those are when those assessments are done. What does that actually mean when the project is complete? I don't mean a date-wise, but that's when the main line is in, or that's when the hookup is available, or at what portion of at what point in the construction does that refer to?
The line is in, and they have the ability to hook up.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Well,
Councilors to my left? Yes, Council Collum.
Hi. Well, that was nice. A lot of work. Thank you very much. It's mind-boggling, the cost and the sacrifice, but you know there's no other way, and we all know that, I think. And we want to engage these policy decisions. They're very important. I will say that Stewart's Creek and the part of town that's already hooked up to sewer has already paid their fee to hook up to sewer. So I'll be fighting hard for that. How much, by the way, did they pay per parcel for the Stewart's Creek?
The cost per parcel was about $15,000, but we had a 50% assessment policy in place. So it was only just under $7,500 per unit.
10 years ago.
10 years.
And when did we require people to hook up to sewer? That's the big question here, because if people just put in, I mean, you can't live with a failed septic for very long. So when people put in $45,000 septic, which we should keep in mind, to replace your septic is up there too, right? When people replace that, if it's brand new and sewer suddenly comes by 2 years later, what do we do there? Tough luck, Charlie. You know, that's a policy decision that we should make as well, I think.
Absolutely. We're working on a separate document. Mark Else, town manager, we're working on a separate document with Brian Florence and the Board of Health and the DPW and our office and legal and Mark to look at that exact answer of where the authority falls, where it should fall, relevant to requiring connections, and what different ways might we approach this. Historically, it's fallen with the Board of Health. During past sewer projects that I have been involved in, we have not stated any more than what the general laws that the Board of Health administer state, which is you connect within 6 months of a sewer running in front of your property. Now, the Board of Health has the ability, with the request of the property owner, to waive that. And so we haven't interceded in that discussion. I believe in the past, when examples like yours, meaning a homeowner invested in a brand new septic system that cost them thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, we've asked the Board of Health to take that into consideration. So that is another policy decision, that not a financial one necessarily, but certainly one that I think the town council will need to consider, and we will be bringing those and other policy type decisions forward. Part of the discussion might be with the Board of Health as to where we want that authority to fall, and is it possible that it would shift from the Board of Health to perhaps the town council? But that isn't typical. So we would need to engage in those discussions and determine how we would do that.
And in that event, are homeowners expected to plead their own case? I mean, it seems like if we ought to put into a position someone who could guide the homeowner through the decision of ripping up and replacing a septic. Is there an ombudsman or something we have in mind that could reach out to people, or they could reach out to at 200 Main, that would advise them of when the sewer is coming within the next 3 or 4 years, hold off on that, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I feel like we really need to have a lot of communication with people, especially in the areas, that we're looking to really ramp up around Lake Wequacket, because those are lifestyle decisions when you're talking about 40 grand out of your pocket or whatever for a new septic, and then something like this comes along. So I think communication is going to be absolutely key. But I do think it's important that we remind people the cost of replacing your septic system is likely more than your hookup to sewer. And so I just think that message needs to be rung loud and clear out there, and that we have someone that people can contact. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think it's essential. I mean, we serve our public, so we need to be there with them step by step. This is a massive this isn't DPW, town manager, town council undertaking. This is our community's undertaking. So yes, we absolutely need that role played. We will have laws that dictate at times. We will have conditions that dictate, but we need to be there with our residents step by step, and our business step by step.
Just one quick follow-up. And on the Storts Creek project, I remember not most, but a lot of the side streets needed grinder pumps and other things. Are those fees included in what you have here for your sewer hookup fee? Is all of that included?
No, it would be part of the project cost. If they're needed, they're going to be rolled into the project cost.
Because I think homeowners were required to buy them on Storts Creek.
They were included in the
Oh, they were included. Okay,
yes,
I'm
they
sorry.
were.
Sorry about that.
They are after a certain amount of, when they replace them, it will become their responsibility.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
If I may just offer a little further clarification, these are items, as the gentlemen know, that we've been talking about every Tuesday at our Tuesday meetings. And as far as clarity goes, the Board of Health has had its process diluted to some degree, in that at this point, 71 people are not hooked up to its creek. And if we ever had any portion like that on our new plans, we would go bankrupt. So there is no play for us not to have a solid plan and not to take enforcement, because we will be voting on the plan. So if you think you're ready to put forward hundreds of millions of dollars worth of projects, you also have to be ready to put forward the assessments that come along with them. Because when we've split them in the past, we have not had success. So we would have complete financial failure if that ratio, I think that's almost 40% of the people down there, are not hooked up. If we had anything close to that ratio, we would be in dire straits financially. That's just a tip of the discussions we need to have as we go forward here. And secondly, just so that, because I want this to be as robust as it can be, we need to be clear, we need to go away tonight, think about it, come back again next Wednesday, go away again, come back again. We're going to have to work so hard to get to the bottom of what's fair and equitable. But really, when you start to talk about a ride of taxes and whether or not we can ask other people to pay for other people's sewer, well, the way we get around that, and it's not getting around it, but the way we account for it, is we take the free ride and turn it towards sewer. So in other words, when you go back to your page 11, and we have the hotel motel tax trend, where we're only putting 1/3 of the money into the fund and 2/3 into the general fund, well, obviously, all of our general fund needs could be met by changing that one ratio. But then we have chaos, or, well, to some degree, because now we have to relook at all of our programs and which ones are more important, and are there some that are worthy of facing an override or whatever it is. But if you're going to go out for hundreds of millions of dollars, you're going to have to ask yourself, am I prepared to make sure that's paid for so that the town doesn't have financial hardships, and that we tackle each and every piece of, do we move roads back to a 11-year program instead of a 9-year program? Do we move ball fields back 2 years instead of 1 year? So we've really got options available, and there's money right here to make all this work. But we have to be the brave ones in this event.
May I ask one more question?
Certainly, please.
Of the, what did you say, 71 people are not hooked up to sewer in Stewart's Creek? What is the, what mechanism are we going to use to get them to hook up? What was the final on that? Like how did that pan out? How did people decide not to hook up? I know they're paying.
They don't decide. They go to the Board of Health and ask, and then they're granted that opportunity.
And so the amnesty was granted, and it's on an individual basis, and it never runs out until their septic fails?
Or property transfers.
Or property transfers. But they're paying an assessment anyway.
That's a different charge, yes.
Right, they're paying an assessment, they just didn't pay the hookup.
Then they're not a customer yet. That's really when Mark, if you go back to Mark's revenue numbers, not adding the 9,800 customers within 2 years of the time that the project is, at the time of the assessment, basically makes us go back to the assumptions in the model. Yeah. We can run all of these scenarios. We could assume 25% don't hook up during 20 years. What does that do financially to the model? What Mark was tasked with is trying to bring forward a reasonable, given the magnitude of this effort, a reasonable projection of how we might manage this, both from a cost and a revenue standpoint. So we've shared our assumptions. We assume those will change. We can run those scenarios with his model, and we'll see where we land. So I think there were 280 units in Stewart's Creek, and we're hearing from Public Works that there's still 70 that haven't connected. So, but again, that authority to require the connection right now falls with the Board of Health, rightly so, it's something that because that's what the law says, but we can discuss that here and see if there's some other way, joint or individually, that we would want to relook at this. And then how might we go forward? Certainly engaging legal and other outside support will help us to evaluate this. I think, beyond your question, I said it when I was doing the town manager communication, but, Mark and I and staff envision this as the beginnings of what I hope is a 12-month discussion. I like to set timelines with objectives, that we address all of what Mark has presented as policy issues in one way or another, and those other policy issues that come forward as we further discuss this and find them. Certainly there are non-financial policy decisions that we will need to make, not just on this issue of connection, but there are zoning implications to expanding infrastructure throughout our community. We really need to sit down and have those discussions. And so that's what I expect. I'm going to ask our leadership to continue the efforts that we have had. They have been exceptional from my perspective, having played several roles for you. We meet every Tuesday for 2 hours, and the whole focus has been on completion of this CWMP to meet our deadlines. As we conclude this, we need to continue those. We need to expand them to the financial policy issues. I think there are other issues too in our community that we're going to want to discuss, but this sort of continued effort, certainly over the next 12 months, relative to these fiscal policy issues and other issues associated with moving forward with the implementation of our CWMP, needs to continue. We need to be coming into town council on a monthly basis. Second meeting of every month will shift from the development of the CWMP to the financial issues and these other issues, to report out how we're progressing so that you can hear, and hopefully our public engages in this prior to getting the bill, and they share with us their concerns and maybe even, hopefully their support as we move forward with this. And I'll stop there. I kind of have a list of notes to conclude with, but thank you.
I think to bounce off that, I think you really have to look at how far we are working to lay out the financial plan in our comprehensive plan. There is not another comprehensive plan that we've seen that goes nearly this far about spelling how they intend to meet their goals. It's easy to develop the plan and say this is the goal, but we've seen plans on the Cape that are 10 years old that haven't even gotten to phase 1 or step 1 because they haven't had a financial plan. So we know ours is going to be inserted. We know this council's going to decide as many tough questions as it can, but it also, the financing part is probably the area where we still will have other councils, and no one council will make this council accountable to the next. So I think it's an area that will have to change based on financial issues and perhaps interest rates, perhaps the occupancy of restaurants and hotels. So we can't get overly concerned, but we have to almost establish a policy saying we intend to have this paid for because we intend to build it, or we intend to float it because it is just a float. But I haven't heard anybody on my council speaking to me that isn't in favor of building it. So let's get it built. Let's handle the tough questions. Let's leave some tracks in the snow, and somebody will follow us through, and we'll do this for the environment. But that's where we're at. The toughest part is to pick the plan for good engineering, and we have great engineering skill sets with us. Now we're in the most difficult part for us, which is going to be identifying the payment process. And who is the enforcing agent after that? We could establish a sewer committee that could be made up of the 13 of us. So that's, but without holding the ground on signing up, tying in, we're not going to have we're going to go bankrupt doing this. So this is as plain Jane as we can talk about it. Councilors, yes. Councilor Dagwan.
Yes, you talk about, we do have great engineers here, but who's going to do the construction of this? Are we outsourcing? I know Vineyard Wind will be doing
It will all be bid. It's all subject to
local bidders.
procurement law.
Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to echo really the discussion that I've heard from all of the fellow councilors. These are the same kinds of questions that leadership has been asking and discussing for the past probably 6 or 7 months. So it's good to know that we're all sort of on the same page and the same target because they're critical issues. And, probably in my tenure as a town council and everyone sitting at this dais, the most important critical issue we're ever going to face is water quality. And so we're going to need to make bold decisions, policy decisions. But just as we make those, it's also going to be incumbent upon us to make sure we come up with solid regulations. Policy is one aspect of it. From the policy, you make the regulation, and the old devil is in the detail. Is that question that comes up whether or not someone who's just put a septic system in, do they get a pass? Can we demand someone to hook up? Where does the legal ramifications of that fall? So there's still a lot of homework to do, but this is something that we as a council, it's upon us. We need to be bold. We need to take leadership in moving this forward because without quality water in the town of Barnstable on Cape Cod, we don't have Cape Cod.
Thank you. Just one more issue, if I may, on pumping and proper notice and people spending money. However we identify the final group that is to review tie-ins, by understanding septic and sewer, we can go a long way to assisting the homeowner with their troubles. Septic systems come in an array of designs and styles, but you can convert almost any septic system to a tight tank system. So if somebody comes in and says, gee, I'm 2 years out and our committee knows that we got pipes coming there in 3 years, then we could talk about sending them through a process where they knock off parts of their components, they make it tight tank, and maybe the town subsidizes the dumping of their sewer because we're trying to, or septage, so that we can assist them to limp along until the 3rd year when they're going to be tied in. So don't think there aren't ways for us to solve all the problems. It's just a whole lot of courage and a whole lot of direction that is going to be necessary by management to get there. Councilor Hebert, I think I saw your hand.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So, to leave us maybe on a more positive note, just the growth. When we talk about the Vineyard Wind, I'm sorry, Mark, how many houses did you see? How many parcels are there now that are developed?
Well, there's 1,640 parcels that could be potentially served by that infrastructure.
All right, so most of those have no houses on them right now?
Oh, I'd say majority of them do.
Do?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Vineyard Wind project could put as many as 1,600 online. So I see it as such an increase in the asset. I happen to be on that line. So every time I have my septic pumped, when I say, it sounds like me talking to my doctor, I say to the contractor, how long do I have? So before we face what council, well, am I facing, an immediate $25,000 minimum or more to upgrade? So I see it as a tremendous asset. As soon as I know that pipe is there, my house value is going to go up. And therefore, I think everybody's house values are going to go up once you have that capacity, because when you go to look at a home, one of the first things you ask, are you on town water? Are you on town sewer? That's both yes and yes. That house has a lot more value. Will that ultimately raise property taxes and try to help offset us?
No, in the sense that that does not constitute as new growth. If the value of the home is only going up as a result of being on a public sewer, it's not considered new growth.
Not new.
But if a house were to be expanded,
yes,
from like a 2-bedroom, perhaps they add a second story, make it a 4-bedroom, that would be new growth, and that would provide or generate new property taxes.
Yes, so I have to say that, again, for me, it's an asset. If we were already on town sewer, I would be looking at adding to my house, expanding my family's able to use that house for the kids more maybe than myself. So I think we're going to see a lot of, with our zoning in place, this is what's going to help increase our housing stock throughout the town when we can add to our houses and add to our parcels that are already there. So it's a plus and something we have to do. So I'm very upbeat that this is going to be great. And we are all in the same boat. We're all together. So I know that we'll work with any residents who are having a hard time with that. We'll figure it out. I don't think we're abandoning anybody. Thank you.
Vice President?
Yeah, just a comment that I should have made earlier. Having been at all of these meetings on Tuesday mornings, I just want to state emphatically that we have an incredibly solid team from the DPW, Dan Santos and Rob Steen and Griff O'Doyne. And not being an engineer by trade, I've learned more about pump stations and gravity-fed systems and tight tanks and you name it. We have bandied this about on many, many mornings over a number of different cups of coffee. And I honestly have to say the work that has been done in this report, the one that we're going to see next, would probably be $1 million plus if we as a community would have had to have gone out to have done this externally. It's absolutely incredible between DPW, our leadership, Andy and others, legal. It's just, it's so impressive what has occurred in a very short period of time to not only get this document, but to get the comprehensive wastewater management plan in place. So I applaud you all. I'm very proud to be part of the team.
Councilor Snip?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to make a suggestion, and I don't mean for Mark to go on the road with Dan, but that some element of the financing plan be included at these community meetings, because that's where people are going to have the most questions and concerns.
We're always available. My caution would be, I think we need to go through the exercise that we've asked of our leadership, because until we can run Mark's model every way that you can imagine, but the policy support from our council is critical.
I think maybe just a simplified pie chart that kind of breaks down where we anticipate the costs for this project, the X percentage that we hope to come from rooms and taxes, and an X percentage from assessment, just so that it gives people a sense of what has been put together, and how much we're asking individual homeowners to participate. So, again, those percentages probably will change, perhaps, but I think giving people that information will help us convey that we are being as transparent as possible about the process.
Councilors, any further questions on the financing part? And we will ask again for him to come in on the end of next Thursday's special, just so that we can think about what we've had for discussions. In this type of a round robin, I will not care if you ask 54 questions, one after another, extend the question, come up a second, a third time. We really just gotta get to a comfort level and make some good choices here. So whatever you need, guys, just holler out and let's keep moving. Yes, Councilor Cullen.
To Councilor Schnepp's point, the finances. At the very least, it would be good to show the cost of septic replacement next to the cost of hooking up to sewer. Because I think those are stunning numbers for any homeowner, whether you take it off when you sell your house and your septic fails or whatever. I just think that it's a compelling reason to sewer based upon all the other net benefits that you get from sewering. And that's all. Thank you.
Lots of variables in that. We are compiling information. It's not required when for example, we can't just go to the Board of Health database on septic systems and see how much it costs somebody to install. Maybe we should ask for that even voluntarily. Certainly we can, and the difference between a south side 3-bedroom, 1-bath property on sand versus what it costs to put systems in around some of these low-lying areas or Woquacket Lake or other areas, it varies significantly. So, but definitely we can come up with an average, and I think it's important for us to know what that average is for a repair versus a replacement, and then to be able to show what sewering does. And then what it costs to pump. I mean, I'm on an every 2-year pump, $400 and something every 2 years just to pump the septic. That was one of my other points to you all, is because I have a 1,500-gallon tank, but there was
we have everybody in Barnstable uses our wastewater treatment facility. They're just not sewer customers. They are septic customers who pump their septic tank on some frequency, and that septic is brought to the water pollution control facility. So as we consider policy and as we consider ways that we might spread costs, certainly Mark has done it through his general fund subsidy, but we can have healthy discussions about that program and whether there's any opportunity to have some fair, equitable approach for everybody in the community, because we all do use that facility. Thank you.
Councilor Cullum, I call it the Tuesday terrors, and that's where you pose a question to a group of PEs that are in a committee, and you look for a specific answer. And then they start peeling off what could be a variable about this. It's very difficult, but we are working to that, and that's a very good question, and a question we're already wrestling with at the tables, the Tuesday terrors. I think what's also important is people don't recognize how difficult some of the permitting has gotten for any septic system. If your perk test hole is not current, they have the right to ask you for 2 different perk tests, even on a very small lot. Well, you can't put a backhoe around your lot without tearing out all your landscape. So now, do we include landscaping, $2,500 for the plan and the perk test before you start building anything? So these numbers really, unless you've been in there recently to pursue a septic permit, they're staggering to people. I don't think the general public really understands how difficult it is to go through the proper channels, meet all the boxes, and get your septic plan designed and accomplished. And these guys know that. So then they start in with distance to water table, clay. They'll just rattle them off. So the Tuesday carrots come to work every once in a while with us on Tuesdays. Thank you. Anyone else?
If I might ask a question, I know that
Sure.
I believe that my suggestion on the 12-month time frame, regular meetings continuing on Tuesday mornings, and then presentations to the council, second meeting of every month relevant to once we finish CWMP, all of these other policy-related issues is something that the council is in agreement that we proceed with?
Yeah, this council is going to want to take it as fast as you have it available to them, as far as I'm reading it. So I think that's not going to be a problem. We'll develop a little longer-term handout so everybody can know and maybe even ask us questions before we get to the table so that the discussion can be more cohesive. We just got to beat the tar out of this thing till we really get to a point that we have concrete positions and answers for so many of the difficult questions. Councilor Tinsley on the end.
Just to go along with your point there about the timetable, if you could wrap this up in about 5 weeks, I'd
You got it.
He's always wanted to vote on it. It's all about him.
If not, there's always public comment. We've got 3 minutes.
We can do it from 11 to 12 each night.
Yeah. He might not be at his brightest between 11 and 12. Thank you, Councilor Tinsley as well. Any other questions, councilors? Thank you, guys. Great presentation, one of many, so here we go. Thank you. Would we ask our Assistant Manager and yourself, Mr. Manager, to come forward, and perhaps Dan Santos to discuss the submission of the Joint Base Cape Cod presentation?
That was Mark Milne's suggestion. I just ran with it.
We do have quorum, gentlemen, and here's a couple more, so we're in fine shape. You're welcome to tee it up, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Mark Ells, Town Manager. I'm here to give an update on the wastewater treatment and disposal at the Joint Base Cape Cod. Much of this is replicating the last presentation I did to you, but I think it's worth restating. I'll also give an update on where we are relevant to that proposal. Barnstable's been studying the possibility of acquiring land rights on Joint Base Cape Cod for future wastewater treatment and disposal. You're all aware of that. We've been before you for your support in pursuing this, both through discussion and through financial support that you provided us so that we can better understand the facilities out there and how we might be able to utilize those now or in the future. As we initially envisioned this effort, our first steps in this endeavor was to acquire the existing treatment plant and disposal systems being offered by Air National Guard via a statement of needs that they issued back on May 20th, 2019. They had come out and they were trying to get out of the wastewater and water business on the base, and we had engaged discussions with 4 other communities, Mashpee, Falmouth, Bourne, and Sandwich, relevant to efforts that they were undertaking to look at whether there was an opportunity to create a regional wastewater treatment and disposal facility at that location. The thought was by acquiring those assets in the short term, we would secure our position for long-term property ownership or long-term lease options to site future expanded wastewater treatment and disposal facilities. We're all well aware of the challenges that there are in siting treatment facilities, specifically effluent discharge. And so being able to look east and west of our community gives us more options to be able to manage these issues as we move forward. It may mean that we remain where we are. It may mean that we take advantage of these options, but certainly having additional options will be critical to us, given what we know about the challenges to extract drinking water from the ground we stand on and live on, and then discharging our wastewater onto those same lands. It's a real challenge, and it's only going to get more complex in the future. The town of Barnstable submitted a letter of interest on May 28, 2019, and received a response letter to that letter of interest from the Air National Guard on July 12th. The Air National Guard identified that they had received multiple proposals, requested a last and final offer from interested parties by September 30th, 2019. Subsequently, Air National Guard strongly suggested that we have serious discussions with the competing proposer, as their short-term goals seem to complement our long-term goals for securing future capacity. So we proceeded with those discussions as suggested. We also began discussions with the Upper Cape Regional Water Supply Cooperative to assure that any proposal would consider the rights and concerns as defined by the act that created that cooperative. The cooperative was created in 2000, and it consists of the towns of Mashpee, Falmouth, Bourne, and Sandwich. Basically, that cooperative was put in place to protect water supply. It was to protect open space, and it was to protect habitat that existed out on the base. And so they believe they dedicated 15,000 or so acres of the base toward this, toward that effort of this cooperative. We commenced discussions with Converge. Converge was the competing entity in this case, in consideration of providing a single unified proposal rather than 2 competing proposals. Converge has served the DoD in the past at bases. They come in as existing facilities. They go in there and they manage those facilities and the customers, and they invest in those facilities to keep them
compliant, and they service those customers that are connected to those facilities. In the case of the base, it's not a large wastewater treatment plant. It is an aging wastewater treatment facility, as is their water supply. So Converge was looking at managing for basically the base and portions of the sheriff's department, the existing wastewater treatment facility, and the water supply. And also looking at the opportunity to work with this cooperative on the base who had an agreement, put in place by the state of Massachusetts that basically protected their rights relevant to the 3 areas that I identified earlier. As we progress through both the shared data and information that came out of the work that the 4 towns originally, Mashpee, Falmouth, Bourne, and Sandwich were doing, and then the additional work that our Department of Public Works had undertaken with your support, it became clear to us that they were looking at probably in the very short-term future about a $30 million investment at that facility, the wastewater treatment facility, and that they would need to look at some fairly substantial rate increases to recover the cost of the investment that was needed that would be imposed upon the current users of that facility. We also heard what the Air National Guard said to us about sitting down and entering a dialogue with this competing entity. We also read through that Act of 2000 that created the cooperative. And in putting all of that information, and knowing that Converge is focused on short-term existing treatment plant, very little excess capacity, large investment, fair amount of risk, certainly public relations issues with increasing customer rates significantly to be able to pay for the cost of the improvements that are necessary at the facility. Our interests weren't in the excess 140,000 gallons per day that they may have available to any of us or the other 4 communities. Our interests are long-term, larger scale facility. It was all about the land and the access to the land for future treatment and effluent discharge. So that's why we continued our discussion relevant to wastewater. We are also interested in the water supply aspects, but I certainly think that we would have to become an active part of that cooperative before that really could come about under our current situation, certainly. So as we reviewed this, long-term, we're interested in the land and securing future flows. Converge was interested in short-term, managing the existing facilities, making those investments, dealing with those existing customers and those rate modifications. And Converge did not have an interest in the long-term land aspect of this. And so we had no inherent conflict there in our discussions. We were kind of complementing each other with what we were trying to do. There is certainly risk involved in investing and running a facility, especially if ultimately we never, put a facility out there to accommodate future flows in the event that we find a better option. So certainly coming to town council to ask for the types of investments and the types of issues that would come with, taking on that short-term effort were significant, carried risk, carried liabilities with them. Converge that's what their focus is. That's what they do. They're going to upgrade the facility, maintain the bills, and work with the existing users. What we did in this proposed agreement, and really it's an agreement for options, and the options are that they're not interested in the land, we are. So they've agreed that they have no problem with us pursuing the ownership or the long-term lease of lands. We've talked about the sharing of permits of facilities
at that location. So it would be a permit held by both. We believe that holding the permit is probably one of the most valuable aspects if we're successful moving forward with future wastewater treatment and disposal at that location. And so we have moved forward with an agreement with Converge. I've signed the agreement on September 22nd. I'm sorry, September 27th. We put in a unified proposal on September 30th, and the Air National Guard has taken that proposal under review, and we expect a decision relevant to the proposal by the end of the calendar year. Town of Barnstable can opt out of this at any time. If we don't like what's happening, we can terminate and walk away. We do not incur any liability relevant to the short-term financial aspects or customer management aspect of this. We have the ability to take other normal measures in assigning this, certainly to agencies or the other communities. We very much approach this from a regional facility perspective. We see this working in the long term, if it is to work, by partnering with the other 4 communities that would benefit by having a regional wastewater facility as an option. Converge didn't come to the table initially to create that option. On the other hand, they weren't adverse to it either. Well, in the agreement that we created, they've obligated to put together a proposal to build up to a $250 million facility up there to service the 4 communities, and then sit down with us collectively and see how that compares to other options. If we don't like their option, within this we have the option of pursuing this on our own without Converge for a future facility. Concurrent with this, I think that, and you know that you passed a resolve where we asked that the town manager with the president of the town council would bring back to the council as a whole legislation to ask that they allow us to pursue land ownership outside of the town of Barnstable. We just can't do that. We just can't run a wastewater facility outside of the town of Barnstable or a water supply. We just can't borrow money to do that outside of the town of Barnstable. So we would have to seek legislation to be able to do that. You've asked myself through the town council president to bring back such legislation for your consideration. So that would be one of the first steps that I would envision as we move forward with the long-term pursuit of being able to put wastewater treatment and disposal out at that location. We're satisfied that we have walked away with being able to address providing future options for our consideration as a community and for our region. And so we were pleased with being able to proceed this way. At this point, we do not know what the Air National Guard will do. We do not know if they will accept this proposal. We do not know if they will split it off into it's a different process than we normally go through. So we await to see the sort of feedback. I believe they're meeting in later October initially to begin this review, and we will keep you advised as this progresses. I know that I've had the question, does this in any way create problems for us in our comprehensive water management plan? I do not believe that it does. I believe that this enhances our ability to look at options that weren't there 12 months ago. Just so you know, we're also, and I'll be coming back to you to ask for more formal authorizations where required, as we will on the vineyard, as we will on the Joint Base Cape Cod and Converge side of whatever we do. I want to engage in formal discussions with the town of Yarmouth about taking wastewater and about gaining access to potential discharge of effluent in the future, because we need every single option in town, to our west, and to our east. Thank you. That's my update.
Councilors, questions? Yes, Councilor Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. President. When we talked on the previous financial situation, and we talked about our increased capacity at the wastewater treatment facility that we have now, it's going to cost, if we get involved with joint base, that's going to be, is that already included in the amount of money that we're looking at? Or is this extra money? I mean, we have to do something about treated wastewater. It sounds like that's a big factor that's in here.
It's not currently in your projection. Yeah. There is money carried for the conveyance costs, but facilities that would be sited out there would be in addition to.
So the conveyance is to move the treated wastewater.
Right now, we went to, I believe we went to Mashpee and Sandwich, but we received authorization from Sandwich to be able to run pipes in coordination with them, to a point at Joint Base Cape Cod so that we could convey our wastewater from here to there. Now, what we would be looking at in an alternatives analysis is, okay, we're projecting a future flow, and are the current options with the upgrades that we're projecting within our wastewater treatment facility adequate, or are there other options in lieu of that that might be more permittable, cost-effective? Is this beyond the scope of what we're currently contemplating as we move forward over a 30-year plan? So again, this gives us options in the future that we didn't have prior to entering into these discussions.
But knowing that we're going to have to increase capacity at our filtration plant as it stands now, we have put some money in a bucket in this presentation that we got earlier.
Yep.
We already know we have some money allocated to the improvement of our capacity. Am I correct in saying that?
At our treatment plant in Hyannis, that's the assumption. That's what we hold the permit, and that's what we're assuming we will go with treatment capacity, and we're still in the process of evaluating for the total project, 30-year project, discharge capacity.
So that if we're successful with Yarmouth, partnering with Yarmouth, and they can take our sludge, for instance, that's a plus for us because that's going to reduce our costs of handling just our sludge, right?
It's the same sort of alternatives evaluation as it would be for any alternative. If it makes more sense from treatment capacity and from cost to be able to take it to another facility, Director Santos and his staff will evaluate that, and they'll make those sorts of recommendations. If it makes sense to keep it where we are, then we would keep it at the existing facility, expand it appropriately. Okay. Both Joint Base Cape Cod or our neighbors to the east or other, as we evolve through this process, I think we should try to keep every option open. You saw the magnitude of the challenge that we're undertaking, and I think without options, we're going to be more challenged to complete this in a way that we can, that is financially achievable over 30 years. So that's all.
Yep. Thank you.
Councilors? Yes, Councilor Raftersati.
Thank you, Mark. I'm glad I had a discussion with you about this. I was a little concerned that the council didn't have the big picture at our last meeting before you submitted, but I understand now. And I know this is a conversation for next week, but does the CWMP have to include an adaptive management plan? And if so, would alternatives such as Yarmouth or Joint Base Cape Cod, or even, I guess that happens with testing what's in place now, but is that going to be included in the CWMP, the alternatives to keeping it in-house? Now, I know I did adaptive management. That's one question, but I need to know whether or not that's included in the CWMP. Do we have an adaptive management plan? And does it have to be part of the CWMP?
It doesn't have to be. Our approach has been relative to the use of alternatives as an adaptive management. So while we can carry costs for sewering, if the implementation of alternatives works, then we can change the plan, and that's why the plan has updates every 5 years, and we will keep revisiting this so that we can adapt to changing circumstances, improve technologies, and make changes that become more effective and cost-effective for the town.
So do you see the Joint Base Cape Cod, if it does come to fruition, do you see that being a great effect on the bottom line for the residents?
Don't know yet. I think the driver there is going to be, where can we dispose of effluent? So if we have several alternatives, then we're going to choose the most cost-effective alternative. If we don't have alternatives, for example, Yarmouth falls apart, our water supply is so important in town that we don't want to put effluent disposal here, and Joint Base Cape Cod becomes the only alternative, then it's less an issue of price than it is of just having an option.
Yeah.
And that was really the driver in the JBCC discussion, is let's keep as many balls in the air as we can right now, and then hone in on the best alternatives as we get more information.
And does the Joint Base Cape Cod option fall within the 30-year period? I mean, as far as permitting, so
Yes.
you see that as being doable?
Yes.
Thank
Councilors? Yes, Councilor Wallace.
Thanks, Mr. President. When we do come to the point, say that we actually want to plan, develop, or build this, and we're going to need legislation, would we achieve that legislation through a home rule petition or through some other vehicle? And if we did do it through a home rule petition, is it possible to get that started sooner than later, so
my
we
intent,
have it in place?
My intent is, as soon as I know, I would ask for your guidance, certainly, but my intent would be that as soon as I know what Air National Guard is going to do relevant to this proposal, and will they accept it as a whole, will they reject it, or will they take some portion of it, that I would want to move forward with draft legislation to town council to proceed with the long-term interests that we had hoped to gain by partnering with Converge. And I'll answer your question then, what the best mechanism to do that is, but I would think first of the year, we'll be bringing in draft legislation relevant to this.
Thank
you. Councilors? Hearing none, I would like to add my voice on a few of the issues. When we looked at Joint Base Cape Cod, we had an opportunity to look at mass development studies. Everybody circling the wagon trains, but nobody having the forethought to go capture the rights. And so I believe whether or not we had to put forward a comprehensive waste management plan or not, we had to identify our flaw in our own system, and that is we can clean more water than we can discharge. And so we have a real estate problem. And we talk about this on Tuesdays, as we do so many issues. And that's why we also came back to Yarmouth with great vigor as well to express that. And the council has to understand that he who grabs the real estate and grabs the rights of permits will eventually have control of the issues. And I think this effort will get us in a position that we will solve some long-term problems as we go down the road. None of them are going to be cheap, and as we point out, we may have to pull all of our discharge out of the town and ship it somewhere because we need it to protect our wellhead. We don't know. But if you really look at the way we chase water, we chase multiple wellheads, and we don't even initiate them originally as wells. We just identify them as wellheads. Well, with sewer, we put the plant together. We were supposed to go do Yarmouth when we built it. We were going every place with it. We never got out of Hyannis, a little bit of Barnstable. We never even cleaned up the low-lying fruit in Hyannis. And we got a plant that we keep investing in, and we got terrific operators and a great group running it. It runs as good as anything on Cape Cod or better, but we're realizing our downfall is we don't have discharge. So with all the issues that are in our areas and all our areas' contribution to the estuaries around them, it's really the issue that's going to get us out of hot water here and provide something into the future for our children as well. So again, thank you for your efforts, and I don't hear any more questions at this time. So I'd suggest we're moving on to act on some minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Great job.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the town council meeting minutes of September 19th, 2019, as written.
I have a first and a second to accept the minutes of September 19th as written. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Any abstention? Hearing none, please record that as unanimous. Communications and elections from boards, committees, staff, commissions, correspondence, announcement. Councilors. Yes. Councilor Collins.
I just wanted to provide the council with a quick update on the short-term rental thing. It'll just take a couple of seconds. Sitting on the committee is Councilor Biedenbender, Councilor Schnepp, Councilor Hebert, myself, Councilor Flores. I think I've got everybody. And we are charged, first of all, with coming up with some short-term rental regulations. So I just kind of wanted to give the council kind of an outline of where we're at and where we're going, just to make things easier. Everybody, I think, has received a short-term rental survey. If you haven't, I have extras over here. This survey is actually on the town website, has been disseminated to all the civic associations and pushed out from there as well. We're trying to get as many people as possible to answer and let us know what their particular concerns are, just to get a litmus of what's actually happening out there as far as short-term rentals are affecting neighborhoods and things. We just thought it was really prudent to start that way before we started solving problems when we didn't understand what they were. So this will be out for a month. November 1st, we're going to call it back in. We're going to give ourselves about a month to hone in and get some regulations in place, and we'll bring it here to polish the sneaker, as Ruth likes to say. The first read we're hoping for the second meeting in December. So I'm going to frequently tell you guys we meet like once every 2 weeks, pretty much at the same time the council meets. And I'm just going to continue to update you guys so you know how the thoughts are developing. Please feel free to come to the committee and offer any concerns you might have. I know John and I live in precincts that are heavily traveled by short-term rentals, and I know that Osterville is one as well. We've had a good turnout from the public to come and help guide us with some legislation that works for everybody. So we're looking forward to hearing from some realtors coming up, just so we have a circumspect view of how we're affecting industry and and how we're defining things in the fabric of the neighborhoods and things. So that's all. I just wanted to tell you that and show you the survey. So please take it.
Thank you very much. And I should point out, it's not a short-term rental committee. It's in the Zoning and Regulatory Committee, and Councilor Cullum is the chair, and she's got a fine committee with her, and I'm sure we're going to find some resolves here as best possible. We know it's going to be a combination of zoning and ordinance. It's not going to be easy or simple, but thank you for your effort. Very big issue in our town. Secondly, anybody can follow them on the website under the Zoning and Regulatory Committee agendas. Just so you know, Osterville Village Association met last night and they were talking about the survey, so thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Councilor Rapcasetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to alert the public and my fellow councilors that the school committee, it looks like, is going to be voting to give up the Katuitt Elementary School for surplus very, very soon. So being a member of the Asset Management Advisory Committee, I would suspect that in the next couple of months, that when that building reverts to the town, we will be left with another vacant asset, significant, with the Armory, the Marston's Mill School, and now the Katuitt School. So I would hope to see it on the Asset Management Advisory Committee agenda for its future, for the school's future. Also note that there's about $239,000 in the fund to take care of the school, the building that is dedicated to upkeep of that structure. So it's significant to the villagers of Katuitt in that it's on a 13-acre parcel and sits upgradient of some major drinking wells. So that's going to be an important issue going forward for the town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council Rep Garcetti is absolutely correct. We saw last night at the school committee some discussion on that. They have not declared it surplus yet, but it is definitely appears to be coming our way. And all assets, as we know, go through the manager for the start, and asset manager is our committee that assists the manager in these decisions. So, absolutely correct. Thank you. Councilors. Well, I'll report on my attendance at the school committee last night. I'm very happy to say that we had a chance to say goodbye to a couple long-serving committee members, both of whom took both the vice chair and the chair for years. Christopher Joyce, who's the current chair, spent 8 years on it, and Patrick Murphy has been a 16-year contributor, including stays for both of them at both the local level and being recognized by the state. So congratulations to great service by two great guys. We were fortunate to have them working with us. They are part of the process that we all are quite proud of, and that was the group that turned over to the town and became a partner with the town for both human resources and accounting. And that is still regaled throughout all of Massachusetts as the first groups to put those two together and put us together on an equal footing. So there's some great work done by those guys. And everything they did was to make it better for the children. So we're very fortunate with their commitment, and I thank them for us. Councilors, anybody else? Hearing none, let's hit the orders of the day. I'll go down this end. Council Dagwan, could you assist me, please, with 2020-30?
Yes, Mr. President. Item 2020-030, appropriation and loan order in the amount of $8,000 for the Route 28 East Sewer Expansion and Pump Station. This is to be open for a public hearing and with a 2/3 vote.
Could we take a peek? That's for the Route 28 East Sewer Expansion. It's for $800,000. $800,000.
Sorry.
No, terrific. Thank you very much. And we're very fortunate. Do I have a first and a second to open the public hearing process? I have a first and a second. Thank you very much. We're fortunate enough, again, to have our Director of Public Works, Dan Santos, with us. So, Dan, please give us the rationale.
Thank you. In order to facilitate required sewer expansion to the western portion of the town as outlined in the town's comprehensive wastewater management plan, sewer expansion along Route 28 is necessary. As planning efforts have developed, the Department of Public Works identified a need for the design and construction of a booster sewer pump station along the Route 28 corridor, which would be capable of conveying significant wastewater from planned future western expansion directly to the water pollution control facility. The town has identified a property at the intersection of Route 28 and Finney's Lane, whose friendly taking was approved in the town council meeting on September 19th as the location of construction of the sewer pump station. This is for a project that will include the construction of the pump station, sewer force mains connecting to the Barnstable Water Pollution Control Facility, and potential modifications at the Water Pollution Control Facility to accommodate the new force main. We would anticipate going to bid for this project in approximately 24 months. Funding for this project will be provided from a bond issue. Future budgets will include the annual debt service on the bond, which will be provided from the Sewer Construction and Private Way Maintenance and Improvement Fund. There is no impact to the Department of Public Works operating budget. I'll address your attention to couple of slides I have, is just identifying the location at 1456 Falmouth Road on Route 28. In red on the left side of the slide, the parcel and the pump station location, and then the proposed force main from that location along Route 28 to the water pollution control facility. Again, this project is for the design of this project. And just to give you a sense, when we talk about the importance of this particular pump station, if you look at that yellow line on the right side of the red, everything to the west of that yellow line will go through this pump station. So it's a significant part of our sewer infrastructure moving ahead. And with that, I'll take any questions you might have. Or
We're going to be in a public hearing, so if anyone from the public would like to come forward, please say so. Seeing none, I'd take a motion to close the public hearing portion. I have a first and a second to close the public hearing portion. All those in favor of closing the public hearing for 2020-30, please signify by saying aye. Any opposition? Any abstention? Councilors, we have our DPW director with us. Yes, Councilor Tinsley.
Just some clarification. When you say everything west of the yellow line, you mean all three phases, correct? Not just phase one? I mean, everything west of the yellow line? Or
it depends. I mean, if JBCC becomes a player, we would make that decision, but definitely phase one.
Huge facility, great grab on our part last meeting. Yes, Councilor Rappersati.
Thank you. Dan, it was mentioned at our last meeting, all the pump stations that are going to be required. This is not going to be the only one to service the western portion, correct?
Correct.
And how many do you anticipate along Route 28, or do you not know that yet?
Well, we don't know. That really comes in when we design those portions. And I think, as I said last time, it's throughout the whole project, there'll be dozens and dozens of pumps. But along Route 28, probably not along Route 28, we're going to be turning the Marston's Mill School into a pump station. And then as we move west from there'll probably be another pump station. But these will be major. These are collecting wastewater from a number of the neighborhoods. So these are significant pieces of infrastructure.
And when do you anticipate construction to be commenced on this?
Probably 2 years from now.
2 years from now. Okay. And in order to hook this up to the treatment plant, where's the sewer line on Route 28 end right now?
It ends in the vicinity of the Barnstable Intermediate School.
So you need to lay pipe from there.
Well, we actually have to put new force main piping from this pump station all the way to the plant, not just connect to that point.
So you don't connect.
Correct.
So does that involve the state?
Because that's not a force main right now. That's gravity
okay. So
collection
does that involve the state?
Yes.
Ripping up the road and all that? Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Biedenbender.
Thank you. Just to follow up on Councilor Rapcorsetti's comment, coming off the heels of the previous town council meeting where we had a lot of residents that were concerned about a pump station, that's a very different type of pump station that's going on, that will go in on Main Street in Centerville, as opposed to this pump station. This, as you're saying, is a collector for multiple pump stations, sewer lines, smaller sewer lines coming to this, as opposed to the Centerville pump station, which is going to be a much smaller unit and manages the sewage from much smaller number of properties, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any follow-up? All set? Councilors, hearing none, I'd move it to the clerk for the vote, please.
Councilors Biedenbender.
Yes.
Crocker.
Yes.
Cullum.
Yes.
Dagwan.
Yes.
Flores.
Yes.
Rapcorsetti.
Yes.
Hebert.
yes.
Levesque.
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Tinsley,
Yes.
Wallace.
Yes.
That's unanimous.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. Well, that passes. So I'm on to 2020-033, and I'd ask Councilor Rapcossetti to help me for a couple.
This is old business may be acted upon. Item 2020-033, appointments to a board, committee, or commission. Resolved, the council appoints the following individual to a multiple-member board, committee, or commission for the golf committee. Ken Moore from Katuitt is a regular member to a term expiring 6/30/2022. Sandy Neck Board, Hank Farnham, West Barnstable is a regular member, term expiring 6/30/2021. Youth Commission, Lily Atwell, Nina Barrett, Brendan Dowling, all to a term expiring 6/30/2020 as read.
I have a first and a second to move forward on 2020-033 as read. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll throw it to the clerk for the roll call.
Crocker,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Dagwan,
Yes.
Flores,
Yes.
Rappacetti,
Yes.
Hebert,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Tinsley,
Yes.
Wallace,
Yes.
Bender. That's unanimous.
Councilor Rapcossetti.
Mr. President, this item is 2020-034, appointments to a board, committee, or commission. I'd like to suspend the rules as opposed to sending this to a second reading on 10/17/19. I'd like to suspend the rules on this as it's an appointment to the Registrar of Voters, Diane Poyant, from West Hyannis, Port Circle, Hyannis, as an appointed member to a term expiring 6/30/2022. This was an appointment by the town clerk, but since the council appointments committee is the appointing authority, that name was brought forward by Ann Quirk. I'm not sure why it didn't get on the last agenda for a first read, but I would like to request that we suspend the rules and vote on this tonight.
Thank you very much. Councilors, I'm looking for a first and a second on 2020-034 to move and suspend the rules on it as well. And we have for rationale, we have Ann Clerk. I have a first and a second. And we have our town clerk, Ann Clerk, for the rationale.
Thank you, councilors. There was just a little miscommunication. One of my registrars has left town, and it required my talking with the Republican Town Committee because it was a Republican position. And I've been through quite a few people trying to find someone that would do this job. And I did find Diane Poyant finally came forward and she said she would do it. And I tell you, I have to have 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats on this committee so that there's no one could ever say you're being biased or you're being partisan. It's got to be this way. And I have on the 16th, I have a voter registration until 8 o'clock. I have to have my registrars there.
Any questions of the rationale? We obviously have a time issue with the elections coming forward, so that's our reason for waiving the rules we traditionally have. Hearing none, I'll throw it to the clerk for a vote.
Councilors Cullum, Dagwan,
Yes.
Flores,
Yes.
Rappacetti,
Yes.
Hebert,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Hensley, Wallace,
Yes.
Bender, Crocker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Levesque, could you help me please with 2019-035?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is new business, may be acted upon, roll call majority vote. This is item number 2020-035, acceptance of a fiscal year 2020 legislative earmark grant in the amount of $45,000 the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development for the purpose of funding homeless outreach sheltering services in the event of severe cold temperatures, as written.
And I'm to the Vice President, please.
Yes, and at the request of the police chief, asking to postpone this item to a date certain of November 7th, 2019.
So I have a motion on the floor and seconded. All those in favor of the extension to November 7th, please signify by saying aye. Any opposition? Any abstention? Thank you very much. Councilor Vec, we managed to get you for two, I guess. 2020-036.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. This is new business. Again, may be acted upon roll call majority vote. This is item number 2020-036. This is amending the Town Council Rule 8A roll call vote as written.
First and a second, and we do have our senior attorney with us tonight. Senior glasses, where are they?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Ruth Weil, Senior Counsel. Pleasure to see everybody as usual. The first sentence of the existing Town Council Rule 8A reads as follows. All final votes of the Town Council on all matters except resolutions and proclamations shall be by roll call vote and shall be recorded in the record. In contrast, the language in Section 2-6 of the Town Charter states all council votes on ordinances, appropriation orders, or loan authorizations shall be taken by roll call vote and shall be duly recorded by the town clerk. The proposal is to substitute the specific language in the town charter for the first sentence and leave the rule unchanged. I think there's been some ambiguity as to where there are roll call votes, if something says an order rather than a resolution and should fall within that category, I think has led to some confusion and some lack of clarity. So the proposal is just to substitute the existing charter language for the council rules and leave everything else unchanged, including the provision where any councilor can request a roll call vote on any item. And I'm happy to answer any.
Councilors, any questions? Hearing none, I'll throw it to the clerk for a vote.
Councilors. Cullum. Bagwan.
Yes.
Flores.
Yes.
Rafferty.
Yes.
Hebert.
Yes.
Levesque.
I'm going to pass.
Neary.
Yes. Sorry.
Neary.
Yes.
Schnapp.
Yes.
Steinhilber.
Yes.
Kinsley.
Yes.
Wallace.
Yes.
Biedenbender. Brocker.
Yes.
Yay, 13 yes.
Yay. Thank you very much. Yes, Councilor Steinhelber, could you help me with 2020-037 to a public hearing, 11/7/19?
Yes, Mr. President, under new business, I'd like to refer item 2020-037 to a public hearing on November 7th, 2019. Order for the adoption of a litter control policy, ordinance, and enforcement as written.
Do I hear a second? I have a first and a second to move 2020-037 to a public hearing on 11/7/19. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposition? Any abstention? Thank you very much. I think we made it, gang. I take a motion to adjourn. I got a first and a second. All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye. Any opposition? Any abstention? Thank you very much. Good job, gang. Good job.